The hardest verse in the Bible is Matthew 10:39. He who finds his soul life shall lose it, and he who loses his soul life for my sake shall find it. This is the crux of the entire Bible. Okay, this is the center. Meaning the entire Bible, in a sense, is purposeless without the fulfillment of this. Meaning, if the saints or the believers today don't fulfill this, then God can't come back and the Bible can't be fulfilled. The prophecies won't be fulfilled and blah blah blah. I mean, of course it's going to happen, right? They're prophecies for a reason, but essentially this is a warning, it's an incentive, it's a rule, right? So this is the way God set it up. We have to lose our soul life in this age. Now, I wonder how many Christians out there really want to lose their soul life. Nobody really wants to lose their soul life. Christian or non-Christian, believer, non-believer, everybody wants happiness. Everybody wants to be happy. Well, what does that mean, happiness? It means you're happy in your soul. It means you are having enjoyment and you're happy. Now, I don't know the extent of suffering and things like that. I'm going to get into this footnote in a minute, but the extent that Christians suffer, I don't know. It varies for each Christian. God, I think, has a plan, a particular story or narrative for each believer, each individual believer, and each story and narrative is unique. It's not all the same. God is called the author and perfecter of our faith, and I believe that He kind of, is authoring our lives. He plays a role. The Bible alludes to the fact that, things that happen to us are, according to God's will, right? How we react to them is different. Like how we react to them is our will, right? So that's where there's a clashing. But I've heard many, theologians say that, God arranges all the environments of our life. He arranges all the details of our life. So, that means that God arranges certain sufferings and certain pains for some people differently than He does other people. Now, how you react to that environment, how you react, maybe that's up to you. I don't know. Does God know how you're going to react? Maybe. I don't know about all that. But this is what He is doing. It is arranging, blah blah blah. So how do I feel about this? It's a tough verse, man. I like the verse because it's objectively strong. I mean, I think it's a phenomenal verse as far as its implications and what it means. But do I like to lose my soul life? No, I don't. And I don't like this verse based on that, right? I mean, it's a pivotal. I've read the Bible many times. Been reading it for many years. Have I read the whole thing from start to finish? I don't think so, but I've been in it. You can see all these marks, highlights. I mean, I've been in it for years, decades. So I just actually don't think I've ever actually read Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, or wait, I might have mixed that up, but I haven't read every every book, in succession. I have not, but I've read every book, if that makes sense. So I've been in all these books. I just haven't read them in succession. Okay. And obviously you can tell I've got all kinds of frickin' highlighting and blah everywhere, right? So back to, and this is all throughout my Bible, right? So I've been in this, so I know the Bible, and I know, I've got footnotes. This is a study Bible. And I really can't think of a more crucial verse. If we're talking about one verse, I can't think of a more crucial verse than Matthew 10:29. Why? 10:39. Why? Because It's how God's plan gets fulfilled. Those who lose their soul life are the ones who are fulfilling God's plan. They're the ones who are taking up the cross. Now let me get into this passage just a little bit. So Christ here says, "Do not think that I have come to bring peace on the earth. I have not come to bring peace but a sword. For I have come to set men at variance, a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's enemies will be those of his household." Boy, do I ever feel that verse. And that's true. Oh, yeah. It's not a good thing, but it's oftentimes our biggest enemies are those within our own household. Our biggest opposers, our biggest, the people we have, the most problems with. Maybe that's a reflection of something that God wants to get through in us. Maybe we need to change. Maybe, I don't know. But it's a pretty clear verse here, man. Let me read the footnote on that. Man's enemies will be those of his household. Verse 36. "The fighting instigated by the usurping Satan against the heavenly king's called ones is waged even in their own household. The heavenly called ones are attacked in their homes by their kindred who remain under the evil one's usurping hand." I mean, yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. But also, I have to think like, well, if God arranges all our environments, then why this, right? I don't know. Our love for the Lord must be absolute. We should love nothing above him. He is the one worthy of our love, and we must be worthy of him. Why? How? Like, I've had all kinds of prayers not answered. I've had all kinds of good things not given to me, by God. I mean, yes, I could sit down and say, okay, well, I've got this to be thankful for. I've got that to be thankful for. I've got things to be thankful for. But when it comes to, like, other things that I needed, I didn't get. So, how am I going to love God? And not only that, like, my love here, me saying that, my love is transactional, right? I get that. But also, like, how am I supposed to love God when I don't talk to him? How am I supposed to love God when I don't see him? You see what I'm saying? Like, I can talk to God, but he's not audibly talking back to me. He's not, I don't think, and some people say, oh, okay, well, you can touch God in your spirit. You can touch God in your, in your soul. Like, you can sense God, you can sense the spirit. And, like, I think that's true. But whenever I try to do that, whenever I try to live in, quote unquote, live in fellowship with God, like, I get mad and I get bitter because of things that have happened in my life. I get mad at God, and, like, I don't want to be, friends with him. I don't want to be, like, connected to him because I'm mad because I prayed for certain things that didn't happen that I needed, and that, I felt in my life I was needing. Now, maybe he might come around and say something like, oh, you know what, you just didn't need that at that time. Maybe I'll give that to you later, blah, 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 whatever kind of crap. And it's just like, I've heard it all. I've talked to lots of people about this, lots of spiritual people, lots of very, very Christian people about this. With this particular subject, and you don't really get the kind of answers you want. You never really do. I mean, did Job get the answers he wanted? Did Job, of course, God didn't tell him certain things that we find out later with Paul, but, such as why was he suffering, such as why did God allow his children to be killed? I mean, such a horrific thing. Like, I mean, obviously that's so terrible. Like, I would never agree with that, But God did it, He allowed he gave the okay, which you could surmise is basically the same thing as putting out the hit. It wasn't his idea for the hit, but he allowed it, right, on Job's family. Killed Job's kids. Satan killed Job's kids, man. Gave Job all kinds of illnesses. I mean, like, it's weird, and the Bible says fear God, and it's like, how am I going to fear somebody, or excuse me, how am I going to love somebody that I fear? How am I going to love somebody like I'm afraid he's going to cause some horrible thing to happen in my life? And it's like, how am I supposed to love that? That's where I've been at. Excuse me, that's where I've been at. Let me go on. He who loves father or mother above me is not worthy of me, and he who loves son or daughter above me is not worthy of me. It's basically saying if you love your family more than me, you're not worthy of me. And when he says you're not worthy of me, he doesn't mean like he doesn't love you anymore, or like he just means what that verse means is that you're not worthy of being included in my return. So when I return, if you love something more than me, you're not going to be raptured. You're not going to be an overcomer. You're not. I mean, like seriously, like these are the things that I grew up with, hearing, reading. And I mean, this is right here in the Bible, right freaking here. It's like, what? Like, why do I have to be worthy of anything? I'm not good enough as I am. I guess not. But you created me, right? Oh, but I got tainted because it was my fault. Oh, but Satan was already in the, garden. So who put him there, right? So is that your fault? Like, all these things, right? 38. He who does not take up his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. He who finds his soul life shall lose it, and he who loses his soul life for my sake shall find it. There you go, man. I mean, that's the toughest verse in the Bible, Really tough, man. So, yeah, I mean, like, right here it says, but even the hairs of your head are all numbered. Everyone, right? So it's like, do not fear for like, and not one of them will fall to the ground apart from the Father. So really it's like, I have it all planned out for you. How are you going to react to it? So this whole thing is just like the whole Christian life, or the whole Christian concept of what life is just a test. Everything is a test. Everything is set up for us, and it's like, how are you going to react to it? So this whole thing is really just God. The whole life experience, at least according to the Bible and according to Christians, is just God kind of prodding us along in the way that he wants us to go. And if we don't go that way, then there's going to be consequences, right? I mean, I don't know what else you call that. And like, that's what I've lived with my, my whole life is like, what if I don't lose my soul life? What if, and I admit I'm very selfish. I admit I'm very soulish. I admit I'm very like, I want my soul life, right? I want to be happy. I want to have happiness in this life. And, outside of Christ, I want things that are not just strictly, specifically Christ. And this is what, the Bible says, is that we're supposed to love Christ above all things. And it's like, I don't know, man, that's a tough one. That's a tough verse. And if you're not, I mean, like, God bless all the believers out there, and you're at where you're at, and God loves you and we love you and all this kind of stuff, but people aren't ready. Christians aren't ready for this. I mean, you're not ready to lose your soul. Like, some people are very attuned to God, and I get it, I get it. But I want comfort, I want peace, I want happiness, and it's like, I'm supposed to get all those things only in Christ. I have this tumultuous life, that's full of suffering, and yet I'm supposed to love God, who's the one who's supposed to supply us with that, with all our happiness and all the things. It's like, it's weird. I don't know, man. And it's weird how he does it. Maybe the amount of suffering is just to a certain level, kind of like when you lift weights. Like, you're not going to go and lift a 100-pound dumbbell that you can't even lift. You're gonna lift a 20-pound dumbbell. So like, the suffering that we go through is like gradual. Maybe it just builds us up, or you know what I mean? Like, using the weightlifting analogy, it's like, maybe he doesn't hit us with, the suffering is meted out, metered out or whatever. So I don't know, man. This is stuff that I've been going through in my head for like 10, 15 years, man. This is stuff that I've been living with, dealing with, this type of responsibility, this type of fear, you know. Oh no, I'm gonna be in the dark room. Oh no, I'm gonna miss out on the, on the reward. Like, it's actually, I shouldn't even say 10 to 15 years. I should say I heard about this when I was like 10 or 11 years old, like 11, 12 years old, like right around that time. So when I first heard that, all this stuff. And I first started reading my Bible, I think, when I was that age. And so I read these verses and I was like, oh, and I mean, of course I didn't know what all these verses meant at that time. It took me a lot of years to really even, my mind grew and I matured, and like, I didn't even know really what this verse meant until my 20s. When I came back to it after a long layoff of not reading the Bible and not being around church. But when I did come back and I realized, and I thought I knew what it was. I thought like, oh, I can, maybe I can do it, or maybe like, oh, maybe this, maybe that, or like, I don't know what I thought. I just wanted to stay in God's presence, or I wanted to stay in God's blessing, or whatever you want to call it, stay in the church and all this stuff. But it didn't happen, and I left, and all this other stuff, and I took this roundabout road, and that roundabout road, probably caused me some maturity. And so after I got mature, I came back to this verse, and I was like, man, that's a hard verse. It stood out to me, a few years ago, and I was like, oh shoot, this is a hard verse. This is kind of the crux of the whole Bible. This is kind of the crux of the whole thing. Yeah, man. To find the soul life is to allow the soul to have its enjoyment and to escape suffering. To lose the soul life is to cause the soul life to lose its enjoyment and thereby to suffer. If the heavenly king's followers allow their soul to have its enjoyment in this age, they will cause their soul to suffer the loss of its enjoyment in the coming kingdom age. If they allow their soul to suffer the loss of its enjoyment in this age for the king's sake, they will enable their soul to have its enjoyment in the coming kingdom age. That is to share the king's joy in ruling over the earth. There you go. There you go, man. And it gives these verses, Matthew 25, 21 and 23. Let's see if we can find those real quick, and then I'm going to end this. Yeah, these verses are even worse. Like, I read these verses and I'm like, oh, it's cringy. It's like, I don't want this to be me. Yeah, you can go read these verses. You know what these verses are all about. Tough one, man. Tough one. I guess as Christians, we are employed with a commission, and I use that word commission in its strictest sense. We only get benefits if we produce something, right? And the Bible, it talks all about it, man. About producing fruit, bearing, fruit bearing. It's a lot in the Bible, right? So if we don't bear fruit as Christians, like, I don't know. So anyway, man, like, how do I feel about this? I don't know, man. I would like to just love God and love being loved, and no, I don't want no commission. I don't want to work for nothing. Like, you want me to lose my whole soul life? You want me to lose, like, I got 90 years on this planet if I'm lucky. Maybe 70, maybe 80. I don't know when my time's up. But you want me to just forfeit that whole thing, all those 90 years, no happiness, or I don't know about no. I mean, like, there's no specifics here. Like, can I be happy on Saturdays? Can I be happy sometimes? Like, I gotta suffer, or maybe I can be happy in the midst of my suffering. I think that's kind of what it's implying, is that loving God in the midst of your sufferings will make you happy, or something like that, right? Well, didn't work for me. Maybe I didn't love God enough. I don't know. But it didn't work for me, and I've had a hard time with this verse. I've had a hard time with prayers not being answered. I've had a hard time with, my life going a certain way. Based on my environment, right? Based on personal things. So what am I going to do? It's like, in that sense, I might as well just give up and love God, right? My life's already shitty. My environment's already shitty. It's like I wish I could just talk to the dude, you know? I wish I could just talk to him. Like, what are you doing? Like, when I was younger, I used to tell people, why don't you just talk to God? Like, he'll answer. Like, you know, until I prayed and there was no answer, until I prayed, I mean, people say that, you know, he always answers us. People say that, you know, but I don't. I mean, sometimes I do, but, you know, I probably don't talk to him enough, right? But seriously, though, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, you know, if my life's already shitty, I might as well lose my soul life. But then maybe I don't love God enough, you know? Maybe I don't really even have a taste for God. Maybe I don't really even care about him that much. Maybe I just want him to be like a father to me. I've heard he was like a father, and to me a father is somebody who provides. To me a father is somebody who, you know, gives good things. It even says that in the Bible, gives good things, right? Gives good things to his children. So, you know, with that said, it's like, why aren't you doing your job, you know? But then again, it's like, do children love their parents, you know, just because of the good things they do for their kids? You know, I used to love my mom, or I used to love my mom and my dad in that kind of way where, like, I wanted them to do something for me or something. It's like, I don't know, man. So much to think about. There's so much little, you know, I don't know how much I love God. I don't know what my relationship is with God. I don't know, you know, I really don't know much about that. Some people say, oh, I love God. Like, I'm not like that. Like, I don't. Anyway, with that said, it's just like, what are you gonna do, man? Do you want that reward, or do you want the temporary enjoyment of this life? You know, and then when I think about that, when I think of it that way, I think, maybe, you know, what if I'm wrong? What if the Bible's not real? What if God's not really real? What if I made all this shit up? Or, you know, what if somebody made it up and it's all in my head? Like, if they, you know, they figured out a way to get in my head. I don't think so. But I don't really like this life. You know, some people are happy. Some people have a nice house. Some people have nice homes, nice lives. You know, why can't I have that? I just want a nice life. I just want to be happy, you know, like everybody else. Why can't I have that? Why do I got to just go with God? And, like, I mean, when I was young, it was like I was disenfranchised with life. I had failed, and, like, but I had also succeeded, you know. I had also succeeded, and when I was succeeding, I felt kind of empty and stuff, and I kind of saw through the whole thing, you know. I kind of saw through a lot of the facade of how great this life is, and I didn't think that this life was great anymore. And based on that, and then I also saw the fact that many people are being, you know, led astray by, you know, by the devil and stuff, and I saw through a lot of his worldly schemes and things like that. So I came to a conclusion, I think when I was like 21 or 19, 20, I was like, you know, I came to this conclusion that God is the greatest thing. Like, everything else is really tainted. Everything else is watered down. Everything else is a lie to some degree. People aren't really as happy as they think they are, and all this stuff. People aren't really as happy as they portray themselves to be and come across as. Not everything is as it seems. And I saw the other side. I saw, like, okay, well, you know, once you're successful, is it really as good as you think, and all this kind of stuff. And there's always an end, you know. And for me, like, growing up poor, my drive was to be successful. My drive was to get out of this poverty situation. Like, that's what I wanted. So, but that never really happened. So I can't really say, well, you know, being wealthy and having everything you want, you know, having everything you want doesn't make you happy, doesn't fulfill you. I can't say that. I had a little bit of happiness. I had some success, and it was kind of empty and things like that. You know, it was all outward, and And so when I came to God, that was all part, that was all lumped in with how I was thinking of this whole thing, right? Was like, this life is tainted. This life is, but most people are just selfish. They don't come to these impasses. They don't hit a wall. They don't see these. No one's put them in a cage. They've never, like they've always had success, or they've always been happy, or they've never like had, like people who find God are usually in desperate situations. And that's what happened to me, right? But then I kind of, out of that desperate situation, I kind of wanted God to help me have a better life. But then when I read the Bible, I realize it's not like that. It's not what he wants. He's not here to just make you have a better life. He wants his plan to be fulfilled, because there's an enemy on this earth, right? So that's kind of how I looked at it. But then as I grew older, I realized, well, that's his shit. Like I don't care that much about that. Like I care in a general way, but also like what's going to happen when you fix it? What's going to happen when there's a new heaven and new earth? Like, what am I going to be doing? Am I going to have a wife? Am I going to be happy? Am I going to have a family? Like, see, that's what I want. In my mind, I want to be happy and have a family and have a wife and be in love. And, am I going to have that in the New Jerusalem? Am I going to have that in the new heaven and new earth? I don't think so. I don't think, right? So it's like, what's my incentive here? To be a king? Like, I'm not egotistical that way. I don't care about being a king. I don't care about ruling. I don't want to be a king. That's not my incentive. So what's my incentive to fulfill Matthew 10:39? My incentive would be, I don't want to go to the dark room. So my incentive is fear. The incentive isn't the reward, because I don't give a shit about that reward. I don't care about being a king. I don't care about the feast. Like, cool, okay, I could come to your feast or leave. Like, I don't care either way. Like, why would I want to be at the feast? Oh, it's going to be so happy. Like, how the fuck do I know? And how the fuck do you know? And like, you know what I mean? It's like, anyway, that's how I view it. Now, do I believe it? Yes. I've felt God. I've touched God. I feel that God is out there. And I've sensed that there's evil. I've systematically seen evil happening from a source somewhere, right? And there's got to be a source, right? So what's the source of this evil, right? Insidious evil and lying evil, and what's the source? There's got to be a source, and for people who don't see through the evil, see through the hypocrisy, see through how things could be better but intentionally aren't better because people are evil, then you got to say, well, there's evil in this world, right? So there's got to be a devil, right? So I believe it, but I've touched God. I feel like it, in my heart, I feel like it's real. In my heart, I feel like God is real. But, what's my incentive? Not to go to the dark room? To be at the feast? Right? I mean, like, I don't know if that's worth it. That's worth 90 years of my life. That for something that might not even be true. No one's died and came back and said, yep, it's true. Maybe I am being, maybe we're all just disillusioned. I doubt it, but anyway. All right, guys, so I think I'm going to end it there. That's just some thoughts, some random ramblings about this verse. It's a tough one, man. It's a tough verse. The Bible's an amazing book. Just for those, if anybody's interested, this is the version that I read, recovery version. Put out by Living Stream Ministry. So, Lord, renew my understanding and enlighten me. There you go. Lord, bless me each and every time I open this book. And I wrote a bunch of religious shit that I crossed out because it was too weird. But this is the version I use, and it's got footnotes. It's got an introduction. It's got outlines. outline of Genesis. All right. It's got outlines for each book, and then it has these footnotes. I'd recommend it, but if you're a believer. But anyway, that's it. Thank you guys for listening. Peace.